Delighted to say Jon Walters joins us on the line en route, I think, John, to Burnley training. Good morning to you.
Morning, guys. You okay?
Good. What does Burnley training consist for you these days? How's the injury?
I'm not too bad. I'm in the gym probably 6 days a week doing ski machine, mountain bike, pull-ups, all that. And I just started a couple of weeks doing Achilles and calf work. And I think the next step's going on the Ultra G treadmill, which is the anti-gravity treadmill, and then on the grass hopefully after that.
All right, well look, it's funny watching the, I don't know if you've seen it, the Sunderland documentary that we seem to talk about almost every other day now, but it gave a good insight into various players, some Irish players indeed, who had been out for long spells with injuries, and how monotonous it could be, I suppose, to a degree, with having to sort of repeat that rehab in a way that, you know, it's not like going to training and hanging out with the lads every day.
No, look, it's you have to get your head around it very quickly. I did. I got my head around it as well as walking off the pitch, and it switches you exactly what I've done. And you've got to get your head. It's going to be a long slog, a long road, and just deal with it. And you know, I mentally dealt with it, and took it with the viewpoint: what's to be is to be, and there's nothing you can do about it. Absolutely nothing you can do about it. So get your head around it and set yourself little challenges and just enjoy what you're doing. You can't be out there training. You watch them training, you watch the lads go out, you sort of side of it, you're not part of it really, but you try to be as much as you can.
Has the fact that it's been a fairly tricky first half of the season for Burnley made it easier or harder for you as an injured player?
I think sometimes it's some lads in a change room. I like to speak to a few lads, especially if they're not playing, and help them in a certain way and speak to them and do what you can for them. And pass your experience off, and sometimes the lads that are playing, like, it'll turn around and it's not all doom and gloom, and you just got to, especially the big clubs away when you're playing those, if you're on a bad run of 3 or 4 games, you just got to turn around quickly. It's trying to do that, and that's the manager's job as well, and the coaching staff, and we had a tough start to the season, but we've hit back and we've won 3 on the run now, which is very hard in the Premier League. It's hard enough to get back-to-back wins, to get 3 on the run going into Watford away. Got a good chance to get 4, so it's good times at the moment, but I think we've got to go on some run to get out the trouble we're in. So I think we're going to be there or thereabouts for the next at least a few months, and see what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely been an encouraging start to the calendar year, and an encouraging weekend last weekend from an Irish perspective as well. I thought Jeff Hendrick should have been given that goal, but even if you don't give it to him, I think he had a very, very good performance last week. His form seems to be picking up recently. I presume his form off the pitch and his own morale is picking up as well.
Oh, Jeff's always in good spirits, to be fair. Jeff's a great lad. He's always in good spirits. Doesn't seem to get too down. Difficult for him, especially at Burnley, because he plays in a position that is not really his position for what he's grown up playing. He plays in behind the striker. I say Jeff's a natural midfielder, but probably not a 10 the same way behind the striker, because you expect him to get beyond the striker and make those channel runs, and that's not really what Jeff's about so much. You get Jeff on the ball, it's always very good. He's good at linking up and controlling that midfield. So sometimes he's judged on that, playing, because he's playing week in, week out, and he doesn't get so much of the ball in our team. So it's good to see him doing well, and good to see him, it wasn't given to him, but it's good to see him involved in the goals, definitely. And
good to see him wishing Robbie Brady on happy birthday on Twitter during the week as well, when he felt the FAI were leaving him out. One of the other things, John, that was certainly caught my interest on Twitter, and in terms of the Bielsa storyline that's kind of dominated a lot of the headlines of football this week, I think the best thing about it had been seeing Jon Walters quoting Oscar Wilde and Roy Keane in the space of a couple of days in response to various questions on the topic. Morality, like art, means drawing a line somewhere, and of course the famous fail to prepare to fail line. Do you think that line was drawn a little harshly on Marcelo Bielsa this week?
Yeah, I do. I think he's not broken any rule. He's not. He's trying to find small margins, and he's doing an unbelievable amount of work behind the scenes. He's shown his press conference, and that goes on at all clubs, all the stats. You know, you have stats guys, and we watch games, but I think that's a different level what he does, and that's just probably for maybe an instance in a game, for a corner or a scenario in a game. That's a very, very small percentage you go through that work. Now, at Stoke, we had a training ground, and the fans used to just park up in the car park in the gym and watch the training. Or you could walk around the footpath, which a lot did, and watch the training through the trees. So I always saw teams could quite easily just watch the training. There's nothing wrong with it. You're a public footpath. So where are the morals drawn, I think, in a football club? Because I think the English media in particular jumped on it, and then you talk about the English media's morals of how they clamber to get the England team and print it to the detriment probably of the English team throughout every tournament and every game, and yet they're the ones that I call and shout the loudest saying what he's done is wrong and cheating. And then the morals of a football club in general, where do you draw the line? Where do you start and stop? Do you start it when you're saying something like that and he hasn't broken a rule, or do you start it when you're trying to sign a player and you talk to a player that you're not allowed to talk to? This goes on at every club. Every single club will do it. So where's the line drawn in terms of morals? And there's lots of other things in the game. What if Frank Lampard's striker dived in the penalty area last game of the season to get him promoted, won a penalty, scored the penalty, and he got promoted? Would he be shouting that his player's cheating because he's been promoted? I don't think so. So it's where you draw the lines of football. I don't think what he's done is wrong.
Yeah,
I think what he's done is very clever.
Just in terms of the reaction and what we've seen written and what we've seen said in the media over the last week, do you think that there's been sort of a snobbery almost from some of the pundits in the newspapers? I think, like just reading Martin Keown yesterday, he seemed particularly outraged by this, that there is some sort of British superiority complex when it comes to viewing an Argentinian manager coming into the Championship and doing something like this.
I don't know. I don't know. Possibly. I think, I said people don't like it when people are successful. I said that, and people like to take an agenda and why. Maybe they don't understand why, or I don't know. But possibly you could say that, and it's different with say like the Frank Lampard, because he's been part of the golden generation of England players and gets on well with the media, very well spoken, good manager as well. You say what's fair and what's not in football. There's another one who Frank Lampard probably get players from Chelsea and other clubs because it's Frank Lampard, where he might not go to a Rotherham, say in the same league. Is that fair? Because it's a difficult one to say, and that's what I say. There's no point in getting on your moral high horse and saying, oh, this is wrong, this is that, because every football club, there's things that go on that aren't in the rules. And in games, there's things that you do that aren't in the rules, but it's part of the game. So you just get on with it and actually say fair play. He's come out and said it as well, which I thought was great. But his translator came out and said it. Who knows what he said? He could have been saying something else. His translator came out and said it. So I think it's fair play to him.
Yeah, I saw Dean Saunders, one of those, be up on his high horse during the week as well. A man who himself obviously had some questionable things to say about Brian Clough in the past, but look, there we go. Gary Breen joins us on the line as well. Morning to you, Gary. Is this, I presume it's this sort of stuff, you'd have seen it in your day?
Good morning. Listen, in keeping with what John said there, he's absolutely right. This talk about a moral code among managers is nonsense, really, because each manager will do everything they possibly can to get an advantage. Managers will know the team from the opposition going into weekend just by talking to an agent who's got a disgruntled player who will reveal it. He'll have one of his players who has mates with one of those in their change room, and he'll reveal it and he'll work along with it. So it's very difficult to suddenly start talking about morality, bearing in mind just how ruthless managers can be, and players as well. Of course they can, and club hierarchies in terms of doing whatever they can for their own benefit. I think ultimately, it's more about etiquette. And Owen, you said about Martin Keown saying about, you don't do this in the Premier League. Well, you're right. I think a lot of people in the Premier League believe that they're above the rest of the world. The criticism that Pep Guardiola got in his first season, people saying you can't win the Premier League playing that type of football, is a lack of respect. It's complete nonsense. I think Bielsa, in keeping with what Johnny's just said there, did an incredible job to be top of the Championship with largely a squad that he inherited. This is not a case of him coming in and bringing all these star players in the way that Wolves did in terms of coming up last year. He's just rejuvenated that whole squad, and I think it's very difficult. People need to be careful in terms of throwing accusations out.
Just before we leave this topic, Gary, one final thought from me was that if this guy hadn't been on the radar of some of the bigger clubs, and you've mentioned some of them there at the top end of the Premier League, perhaps he most likely is now, given the week that he's had, the force of personality, this scientific approach to it, a guy who can get results is surely now getting attention from some of the bigger clubs.
Well, if those bigger clubs hadn't known about his skill set, that's a nonsense, really, because he's been admired. All these new generation of managers keep citing that he's their inspiration as such in terms of what they've learned under him. But also, I'd counter that by saying all the things and everyone talking about a masterclass. It's not things that people are not doing anyway. People are doing a lot of this work behind the scenes. It's probably the supporters are not aware just how much detail goes into it. You have to do everything possible to make sure that you're fully prepared. Now, when I was coaching at Peterborough, one of my main remits was dealing with defensive corners. So I'd watched countless hours of the opposition in terms of their corners, just to see whether or not they'd done something we hadn't seen. I'd work on a training field then to counter that, how we were potentially vulnerable. I'd work on scenarios like that. So you do it, and our coaches are doing it all the time. So as much as people say how brilliant that was to see what he had done, it is actually been doing quite commonly throughout the leagues.
I want to talk a little bit about the United-Brighton game, obviously the weekend, and the incredible run, John, that United are on at the minute, that Solskjær is on, and he's making it very difficult, obviously, for the United bosses not to appoint him almost at this stage. And if he continues the way he's going, John, they're going to nick a top 4 spot here. Can you see that happening, and do you expect Solskjær to get the gig in the long run?
Well, I think he's done an excellent job so far, and I think it's obviously a good team anyway. I think it's just getting the confidence in the squad and rejuvenating them after Jose. So, he started better than any other manager in history. So it'd be difficult if he carried on like that not to. But it's a case of, especially if you got in a Champions League spot, because that's the club's worth a lot. And realistically, if you look at it, Manchester United is a business now, so when they make decisions, it's a business decision as well, not just a footballing one, because the stock price goes up and things like that. And whether they've got, I'll be very, very surprised if Manchester United haven't got stuff and weren't speaking to someone anyway, whether that be Zinedine Zidane or I don't know who else has been mentioned, whether that's lined up somewhere anyway. I'm not too sure. And as you say, in football clubs, there's a lot of things you don't know that what goes on. And being a business, he would have calculated every decision on it. But if he carries on going the way he's going, it'll be very difficult to not at least give him a go of it. I think they've got to do well in the Champions League as well. But saying that from the players, it's all and well sometimes playing differently for a manager. When a new manager comes in, she's just trying to impress. In that first month, everyone's running that little bit harder and trying a little bit more in training, doing all the right things. Seen it at clubs down the years, that little bounce effect of a new manager coming in. But it's the second month, it's the third month. You need to get those players doing the same things, carrying on and going forward. Because you see it where players do it for the first month and then go back to their old habits and be a bit sloppy or be a bit. So I don't know, but he's done an unbelievable job since he's gone in, so it'll be very difficult not to.
Yeah. All right, John, listen, you've been great with your time this morning. Thanks a million for taking the call. Best of luck with the continuing rehab.
Oh, cheers, thank you. And a little mention for Alan Byrne you had on last night. What a guy he is. Unbelievable moments.
Seems like there's so many good stories coming in about him, John. There was a few players in touch last night as well.
Yeah, look, at the moment I was involved in the Irish squad, one of the nicest guys you'll meet. And it's purely just to look after as a person as well. He looks after you so well. He's an unbelievable guy.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Well said. Thanks a million.
Cheers, no problem.
Cheers. Jon Walters on the line there on his way to Burnley training. Just to continue on that theme, Gary, the Brighton United game and like the job that Chris Hughton is doing, sometimes I think we don't really... I mean, he tends to get an understated credit almost at times. I mean, it struck me during the week that when you look at Wagner getting the sack at Huddersfield, and the two of them would have come into their respective jobs with their clubs in relatively similar positions at the wrong end of the championship. The success of the job that he's doing, I mean, there's no conversation really about Brighton being anywhere near the relegation positions this season. He's gone about his business quite quietly, but really doing an unbelievable job.
But he always does. He's a fabulous manager, and too often it's aimed at him that nice guys finish last as such, and it's something that people are probably saying about Solskjær as well, that these, just because they've got a nice personality, nice way about it, and they lack a bit of steel. Well, having worked under Chris Hughton with the Irish team, I can continue, he certainly has that, and you can't be as successful as he is being without it. He's very astute, had a great grounding in terms of how long he was a coach before he took the opportunity to make that step up and be a number one. But since he did that, he hasn't looked back, and it's not only a job he done at Brighton, done a sensational job at Newcastle as well. So it doesn't surprise me one bit. He's a brilliant manager.
It's interesting actually that you spoke about defensive coaching there a moment ago, because I often wonder, looking at this exact fixture, Manchester United against Brighton, in their current status, if it is an example of excellent defensive coaching, that obviously Duff and Dunk are two excellent football players, but it seems that they've been coached to maximise their potential as well as a partnership. And I do wonder if we're seeing the early signs of very encouraging defensive coaching from a Manchester United perspective as well. Like, look at the performances of Victor Lindelof under Ole Gunnar Solskjær so far.
No, listen, in terms of Brighton, I think what Chris does is he assesses what he's got with those players. He obviously brought in Shane Duffy to go alongside Dunk, and they work hard. They don't give up much space behind because they're not the quickest on the turn. We've seen that. So he makes them defend deep. The fullbacks stay narrow. Midfield two in front work ever so hard. The whole team does. I think you don't play for Chris Hughton if you don't. So that's why you see how organised they are and how much work's done on a training field. On the flip side then of Solskjær, I disagree with you. I think they got ripped to pieces against Tottenham, and everyone talks about this passing of the test, which he done brilliantly, Ole Solskjær, in terms of tactically so astute, playing split strikers, which obviously then exposes Tottenham's fullbacks, and they work to perfection. But you can't look at that game and say, wow, that was an incredible performance from front to back, because Tottenham, goalkeeper De Gea had to make 11 saves. So there's a lot of work still to be done. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of those Manchester United players, the likes of Pogba, the likes of Rashford, Martial now, who are now showing that they are capable of being Manchester United players. But the flip side also is there's a lot still in that squad who are not good enough, despite contributing, as you rightly said right now, the likes of Herrera, Lindelof as well has improved. But I don't see them getting United back to being title winners.
I did want to ask you a little bit about the Arsenal-Chelsea fixture this weekend, because it has been a relatively interesting couple of weeks from both clubs' perspective. Obviously, Arsenal not willing to pay Aaron Ramsey's wage was a little bit of a warning sign, I think, from a few Arsenal fans' perspective. That being said, it looks like he's going to get 300k a week at Juventus, which is absolutely outrageous. It looks like they're going to try and get most of Mesut Ozil's wages off the books as well. Whereas on the flip side, Chelsea, now they don't want to pay Gonzalo Higuain what he wants, but they're still going to give him something. They're still going to put out a fairly significant outlay, you'd imagine, to get him on loan if that goes through. And also the fact that they've signed Christian Pulisic a couple of weeks ago. We thought that perhaps the gap was closing between Arsenal and the rest of the big six clubs, where the financial muscle wouldn't outweigh them too much, but it seems it's reverting back to the instant post Emirates construction days. Or am I exaggerating there a small bit, Gary? No,
I think you're right. And the worrying thing for me ultimately was the recruitment in terms of the behind the scenes, in terms of likes of Mislintat coming in, who was a guy who has a fabulous reputation for finding these players, unearthing the next generation of stars. His name is Diamond Eye in Germany, but now he's being caught by Bayern Munich. That something's not quite right there, that he's not settled. He's going to look to leave. And the massive concern is that if Arsenal can't compete, then why are they allowing millions and millions to go out of the building? They've seen, and it's not just Ramsey, it's not just him going. We've seen it with the fact the likes of Ozil was allowed to drop his contract down to a year to go, and then was able to renegotiate an incredible deal. Sanchez then went off. But we've seen it with Oxlade-Chamberlain, we've seen it with Walcott. And this is what frustrates me so much, is that Arsenal should know better, bearing in mind that they were the architects of what I still believe is the most sensational Premier League transfer of all time, in terms of Sol Campbell going on a free transfer from Tottenham to Arsenal. So the lesson should have been learned. And for them to allow millions to go out of the building like that is a real poor indication of what Gazidis has done. And then obviously trying to replace Wenger, I think it's been a brilliant acquisition in terms of getting Emery, but then Gazidis then leaves for AC Milan, and you just think he's just literally left Arsenal high and dry. And this is the massive concern, is that financially now they can't compete. They're talking about just getting loans in. There's suggestions that Suarez will come in from Barcelona. I know he's worked with Emery before, so that bodes well as such, but there's no doubt it's all well and good getting these offensive players, but it's defensive reinforcements that Arsenal need. And the only thing I can counter it by saying is that hopefully they're not prepared to waste money, which can often happen in January, that they're stockpiling their money to make a real good go of it in the summer transfer window. But certainly there's a financial gulf again with Arsenal not being able to compete with the top teams, despite, as all those Arsenal fans were told, when they get to the Emirates, they'll be one of the leaders again.
Yeah, given the points gap between them as well, it's absolutely essential that Arsenal get the win at the weekend. Gary, a pleasure as always. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. In that battle for fourth of course, the live game and Off the Ball this Sunday, Huddersfield against Manchester City. Stephen Doyle and Kevin Kilban going to be on commentary duty for that, and also there's live commentary of the rugby. Wasps against Leinster on Sunday. Conor Morris, Brendan Mackin and Jake Heenan going to be in the commentary box for that one. So that's what's coming up on Off the Ball over the weekend. Your Arsenal going to get it done?
Probably
Unlikely?
not. Probably not. Like it is. The sort of fixture Arsenal would win, isn't it? That's the
well, that's true.
All the cliches of the peak Arsenal banter era are coming back. They're coming home to roost over the past couple of weeks. We've got our Arsenal back is now being taken on to its actual conclusion, which is, Arsenal of 3-4 years ago was finally.
Must be horrific being an Arsenal fan, because you thought that you did have your Arsenal back and that Emery was the second coming of Wenger the first. And now you're still like...
Well, I have my doubts that it's actually Unai Emery's fault.
Right.
To this extent.
Deeper problems,
like as he said, Gazidis just jumped ship after hiring him. Something is not right there.